Hi. What's today? Thursday. I hope everyone's having a great Thursday. Ace is eating a treat. You're propped up a little bit funky. We are going to continue on the Odyssey by Homer. I don't know if it was for this video, but someone on YouTube commented asking me to confirm what print edition it is. It is Arcturus. It is the Arcturus edition. Yes. I'm right now. Hi, buddy. Hey, how is that? He's so cute. Okay. Let's start with book 17. We're going to try to get through 2, but we'll see. Because I really want to have this done before I go on vacation. Book 17. Dawn saw Telemachus, the son Odysseus loved, binding on his rich sandals. He picked up the heavy spear that so well fitted his grasp and turned his face towards, saying to the townwards. We're going to restart. Book 17. Dawn saw Telemachus, the son Odysseus loved, binding on his rich sandals. He picked up the heavy spear that so well fitted his grasp and turned his face townwards, saying to the swineherd, I am for home, father, to show myself to my mother, for I think she will not stop the tearful lamenting till she has seen me in the flesh. Now for my orders. You are to bring this poor creature to the city where he can beg his bite or sup off the charitable. My heart is too distracted to care for every chance-comer. If the stranger resents my saying so, that is his misfortune. I like blurting out the truth. But Odysseus replied composedly, My friend, I have no wish to dally here. There is better begging in a town where those who feel inclined will give me things. I am no longer of an age to live in quarters, obedient to my superior's every nod. So go, and this man will bring me along as you have ordered, when I have warmed myself through at the fire and the day is heated up. The morning frosts might be too sharp for me in these poor clothes. Also, it seems the city is quite a journey off. After he had heard him out, Telemachus strode vigorously from the farm, maturing schemes against the suitors by the way, till he reached his substantial house and paused to prop his spear against the tall column before stepping across its stone threshold. Euryclea, his nurse, was quickest to see him, from her job of spreading sheepskins over the ornate seats. She ran to him in a flurry of tears, and the other maids of the household followed her to flock about him with loving kisses for his head and shoulders. Forth from the chamber issued heedful Penelope, as fair Artemis or golden Aphrodite, to clasp her son and kiss his face and both his beautiful eyes, while she sobbed, Are you back, Telemachus, dear light? I thought never to see you more after you sailed secretly and without my leave to Pylos for news of your father. Quick, tell me what you saw. He answered, Mother mine, I have barely missed death. Do not ruffle my heart or set me crying again, but bathe yourself and change your clothing. Then go upstairs with your women into your room and vow victims by hundreds to the gods on the day Zeus will vouchsafe us perfect vengeance. I am for the assembly to recover a stranger who came back with me, but whom I had to send on with my devoted crew after getting Piraeus to take him to his place and care for him honorably till I arrived. His speech stifled the questions on her lips. She performed her libation, put on clean garments, and vowed whole hecatombs to the gods if Zeus would ever let their revenge fructify. Never heard that word before. Telemachus left the house spear in hand, with 2 fleet hounds at heel, and upon him such grace from Athene that all the people adored as he came. The suitor lords bustled up with welcomes that covered the malice in their hearts, but he avoided them to sit by Mentor and Antiphus and Halitherses, his old family friends. They questioned him eagerly, but at the instant Piraeus the spearman appeared, leading his guest through the town to the assembly. Telemachus went over to be greeted thus. Telemachus, send your women promptly to my house and collect the gifts of Menelaus. But he replied, Piraeus, we cannot yet see how things will go. If the suitors manage to kill me traitorously in the palace and split up my heritage, I would rather you held these gifts. But if I succeeded in dooming them to death, then shall I be justified. But if I succeed in dooming them to death, then shall I be just as glad to get them as you to let them go. It's been a busy morning. I'm just going to try to slow down and not rush through this. He led the wayworn Theoclymenus to the house. Within its massy halls they threw down their cloaks upon some settee or throne, and went to wash themselves in the polished baths. The ministering women bathed and anointed them, and clothed them warmly. Forth they came once more to their seats, where the maid of the ewer poured for them the hand water over its basin, and drew up their table, which the housekeeper hospitably spread with loaves and many dishes. But Penelope placed herself in a reclining chair against the pillar opposite, and spun fine yarn on her distaff all the while they fed themselves full. At last she broke out, "Telemachus, I am returning to my own room, to that bed of sorrow which I have kept bedewed with tears since the day Odysseus went to Ilium with the sons of Atreus. Seeing that you will not move yourself to tell me, now before the suitors come in, what the news is of your father's return, if you did hear anything." Said Telemachus, "Nay, mother, listen. We went to Pylos, where Nestor the king welcomed me like a child who had been long abroad. He and his sons were so kind, but of Odysseus, alive or dead, he had no news at all. He found me well in chariot and horses, and sent me across to Menelaus, the son of Atreus, in whose house I met Helen, the cause, under God, of the Argive-Trojan travail. Menelaus inquired why I had come, and when I explained, he said, 'For those cowardly suitors to aspire after Odysseus' bed is for a hind to lay her unweaned fawns in a lion's den while she ranges abroad for food. As the lion on his return makes sad work of them, so will Odysseus grimly slay the suitors. If only the gods would bring him upon them in the might whereby he flung Philomelades at Lesbos, to the general joy, what a short, sharp issue they would have to their wedding. Your query I will best meet by telling you exactly what I learnt from the old man of the sea. He said he had seen Odysseus in an island, nymph Calypso's prisoner, miserable in her house, but unable to escape for lack of shipping, and men to ferry him across the swelling sea. That is what Menelaus said. I have something in my nail. That is what Menelaus said. Having achieved my mission, I sailed for home, and the gods gave me a fair wind, which brought me quickly here." My nose is itchy today, too. His tidings fluttered her heart, but godlike Theoclymenus interposed, "Hear my word, O august consort of Odysseus. Indeed, he had no certain knowledge, but I will prophesy to you most clearly and exactly. I testify by Zeus in first insistence, as by this hospitable board and the hearth of Odysseus at which I stand, that already he is in his native place, active it may be, or elsewhere lying low, but surely hearing of these disorders and meditating vengeance upon all the suitors. The bird I saw by the decked ship pointed the future so plainly that then and there I declared it to Telemachus." To him Penelope replied, "May your word be fulfilled, stranger. Then I would show you how lavish my gratitude could be, even till every passer-by did praise your fortune." While they thus talked, the suitors on the flat land before the palace were heedlessly amusing themselves with the discus or spear-throwing. Supper time came, and homeward after their appointed shepherds came the flocks from the outlying pastures. Then did Medon, the favoured attendant who was always at the feasts, proclaim, "Lordlings, now that you have played to your heart's content, turn back to the house, and we shall feast. Nothing is better than a timely meal." They sprang up and went as he advised into the stately house, where they piled their cloaks on the high seats, and slaughtered great sheep, fat goats and pigs, even a bull from the stock, to furnish their table. Odysseus and the swineherd were ready to leave the country for the town. The exemplary swineherd remarked, "Stranger, you are keen on moving today." My goodness. Maybe we need a better setup, and we're just going to keep this because I really don't want to restart. Goodness gracious. I don't even know how that happened. Okay, that should be better. Sorry to that man. I don't even know where we were. To furnish their table. Okay. Odysseus and the swineherd were ready to leave the country for the town. The exemplary swineherd remarked, "Stranger, you are keen on moving today to the city as my prince ordained. Yet I would have left you here in charge, only for regard of my master and in fear of the rebuke which would follow from him. Very terrible are the rebukes of kings. So let us away. More than half the day has sped, and you will feel the chill towards nightfall." Odysseus answered, "I understand. I agree. You address an enlightened man. Indeed, let us set off under your sole guidance. Yet if you have a trimmed staff, give it to me, to steady my steps over this road which you describe as difficult." He slipped on his mean wallet, that tattered thing with its shoulder cord, and Eumaeus gave him the stick he wanted. Off they went together, leaving dogs and herding men to keep the farm. In such state, like an aged and sorry pauper, hobbling on a staff and deplorably dressed, did the swineherd bring his king home. They threaded the awkward path till hard by the town, and they found the running spring, steined round with Ithacus, Neritus, and Polyctor, which Ithacus, Neritus, and Polyctor had built. From this fountain, the citizens drew their water. A grove of black poplars completely encircled it, and the water, ever so cold, ran down thither from a crag crowned by an altar to the nymphs. Every wayfarer paid reverence there. Here it was they encountered Melanthius, the goatherd, son of Dolius, with his who with 2 herd boys was bringing in the pick of all his goats for the suitors' supper. When he saw the pair, he broke into abuse, calling them every vile and shameful name, which put Odysseus mightily about. "See one beast escorting another," he cried. "How the god joins like with like. Whither, you rogue of a pig-keeper, will you take that hang-dog beggar, that gore-bellied mar-feast? His sort hangs about, scratching their backs against ever so many doorposts, and whine not for swords or cauldrons, but for orts of food. If you lend him to me for helping at my place to clean stalls or fodder the kids, why, he could drink much buttermilk and plump out his spindle legs. But having acquired none but bad habits, he will not attempt a job so long as he can go begging through the town and pester everyone to feed his gross paunch. Yet listen to my telling you what will surely happen if he ventures to the great palace of Odysseus. Showers of footstools flung by manly hands will whiz round his head or crack sharply against his ribs while they pelt him through the hall." Tried to ask a question yesterday. May I ask it again? Sure, you can ask a question. How far are we into the story? This far. We are on book 17. We're on book 17. Ask a question. Please be my guest. I have a YouTube channel. It's the same name as this. It's K Reads Classics, and every other part of the story thus far has been uploaded there. Yeah. So he reviled, and in passing he backheeled Odysseus savagely in the rump, but nevertheless failed to jolt him off the path, so solidly he stood. Odysseus was in 2 minds, if he should not lift his cudgel to bludgeon him out his senses, or tackle him low and bang his head against the ground. However, he mastered himself to take it quietly, but the swineherd, with a glare of disgust, lifted his hands to pray aloud. "O fountain nymphs, who are daughters of Zeus, if ever Odysseus burned on your altar that fat smothered thighs of rams or kids, then grant my petition to let him return. Let some god restore him. How he would toss to the winds all this sham splendor with which you deck yourselves to parade the city, while faithless shepherds let your flock run to ruin." Melanthius called back, "Beshrew me, but the dog talks as if he would bewitch us. Upon a day I shall take him far from Ithaca in a fast, dark ship, and let his sail bring me a fat profit. Oh, that Apollo of the silver bow would strike Telemachus today in his house, or the suitors settle his account, even so faithfully as Odysseus has died in some far land." With that parting shot he left them to plod on, while by a shortcut he gained the palace, entered it, and sat amongst the suitors opposite Eurymachus, who was very partial to him. The servers brought him meat, and the housekeeper bread for his eating. Step by step, Odysseus and Eumaeus were drawing near. They halted when the music of the polished harp broke on their ears, as Phoebus struck up his song to the company. Phemius. The hero caught the swineherd's hand and said, "Eumaeus, of a truth this dwelling of Odysseus is noble, easily picked out and recognizable amongst many. See how it rises stage beyond stage, with its courts all properly walled and coped, and its double doors so securely hung. No man could reckon it cheap. And I can tell there are many men banqueting within, for the smell of roast hangs round, and loudly rings the lyre which the gods have made to chime so well with feasts." To which Eumaeus answered, "Well may you notice that, if you have any wit at all. But now let us think what to do. Will you go first into the great house and join the suitors while I stay here? Or you remain without and I precede you? Settle it quickly, for if they see you dawdling outside, they may smite or throw something. Weigh my words." Odysseus replied, "I have you. You address a sensible man. Go in front while I wait here. I have no more to learn about beatings or stonings. With all those accidents of sea or battle, my heart has grown wholly callous. Let what may be go on the reckoning. Yet it is deplorable there is no hiding humanity's chief curse, this clamorous belly which launches so many proud ships to the affliction of enemies beyond the sterile seas. As they talked, a dog lying there lifted his head and pricked his ears. This was Argos, whom Odysseus had bred but never worked, because he left for Ilium too soon. On a time, the young fellows used to take him out to course the wild goats, the deer, the hares, but now he lay derelict and masterless on the dung heap before the gates, on the deep bed of mule droppings and cow dung, which collected there till the serfs of Odysseus had time to carry it off for manuring his broad acres. So lay Argos the hound, all shivering with dog ticks. Yet the instant Odysseus approached, the beast knew him. He thumped his tail and drooped his ears forward, but lacked power to drag himself ever so little towards his master. However, Odysseus saw him out of the corner of his eye and brushed away a tear, which he covered by quickly saying to Eumaeus in an offhand way, "Strange that they let such a hound lie on the dunghill, but a beauty to look at, though of course I cannot tell if he has sped to match, or is merely one of those show dogs men prize for their points." Eumaeus answered, "That is the hound of a man who died far from home. If only he could recover the fire and life that were his when Odysseus left for Troy, how your eyes would open at seeing such speed and power. Put him on the trail and no quarry ever escaped him, not even in the densest thickets, so keen he was of scent. Now he has fallen low, his master having perished abroad, and the heartless women caring for him not at all. Slaves, when their master's control is loosened, do not even wish to work well. The day a man's enslaved, Zeus robs him of half his virtue." With this word he plunged into the house, going straight along the hall amidst the suitors, but Argos the dog went down into the blackness of death the moment he saw Odysseus again after 20 years. That's an old dog. Telemachus, being the first to notice the swineherd come in, waved and called him forward. He peered about till he saw the trestle on which the carver would sit whenever he had much meat to divide amongst the feasting suitors. This he carried to the other side of Telemachus's table, and there straddled it. The usher served him a portion with bread from the basket. On his heels Odysseus entered, a miserable, aged beggar to all seeming, halting on a stick and ragged. He sat down on the door-tread, a beam of ash, and leant against the cypress wainscot which the old-time carpenter had planed so smoothly and plumbed upright. Telemachus called up the swineherd, gave him a whole loaf from the fair basket and a double handful of meat, and said, "For the newcomer, with my instructions to go round and beg of all the suitors. Shyness and destitution are poor bedfellows." The swineherd, on hearing this, went across and said emphatically, "These, stranger, from Telemachus, who bids you go round and beg of all the suitors. Modesty, he says, sits ill on beggars." Odysseus, for response, prayed aloud, "O royal Zeus, make Telemachus happy on earth and ensure his heart's desire." He took the present in both hands, laid it on the sorry wallet between his feet, and made his meal there, while the musician sang. When he was satisfied, the song had ended and the clamor of the suitors was loud across the hall, but then a fiend spirit visited Odysseus and prompted him to solicit hunks of bread off them as a test to distinguish the just from the lawless, though not even so would she save one man of them all from fate. Accordingly, he set off by the right to beg from each man in turn with outstretched palm like a trained mendicant. They had compassion and began to give, in surprise asking one another who and whence this man was. Melanthius, the goat man, then gave tongue, crying, "Hear me, suitors of our great queen, and I will tell you about the stranger whom I have seen before." The swineherd introduced him here. As to who or what he is, that I cannot say. The news made Antinous short with Eumaeus. "Infamous swineherd," he called out, "why bring this thing to town? Have we not vagabonds enough, paupers whose pestering turns our stomach while we feast? Do you reck so little that they swarm here and eat up your lord's substance as to add another to the list of them?" Eumaeus replied, "An ungenerous speech, Lord Antinous, be you ever so noble. Who invites or constrains a stranger to his board, unless he happens to be some creative man, a prophet or healer or worker in wood, or perhaps some surpassing musician with power to give joy by song? Such men are asked the world over. But beggars, who invites them to prey on him? You are always harshest of the suitors against the servants of Odysseus, and especially against me. Yet I complain not, while stead Penelope and godlike Telemachus remain in the palace." Telemachus hushed him. "Hold your peace, Eumaeus. Never enter into discussion with Antinos, whose custom it is to rail upon us angrily and inflame the company. Then to Antinos. Is it out of love, Antinos, with a father's feeling for his son, that you would have me arbitrarily expel this stranger from our house? God forbid. Instead, I pray you take somewhat and give it to yourself. Far from grudging this, I urge, I enjoin you so. Disregard Penelope and my great father's servants. No? Your heart prompts you this way not at all? Truly, you would rather feed yourself than give a crumb away. Antinos retorted, Telemachus, pride and temper run away with your tongue. If all the wooers gave him what I am going to give, this house would be quit of him for 3 months or so. And as he spoke, he hooked out into view from under the table and poised in his hand the footstool on which his lithe feet had rested during the feast. But all the others were giving Odysseus presents and stuffing his wallet with bread and meat. Really, it seemed he might regain his doors still unscathed after feeling the temper of the Achaeans. Only he paused facing Antinos to adjure him direct. Alms, my kind sir, for you seem to me not the meanest of the Achaeans, but their kingliest. As such, you owe me a greater hunk of bread than any, and so should I hymn your praise the length and breadth of the earth. Once I had my house and was rich, with crowds of servants, and what else composes a decent life. Charity to waifs in all kinds and degrees was then my habit. But Zeus stripped me. Surely it was Zeus, when he sent me roving with pirates to distant Egypt in disaster. In Egypt's mighty river I stationed my fleet and commanded my stout companions to bide by their ships, on guard while the scouts went ashore to spy. But the scouts began wantonly plundering the land, killing its people and carrying off its women and children. An alarm was raised, and there came against us great hordes that filled the countryside. Panic took hold of my followers. They broke and were slain or taken, but my lot was to be sent away by the Egyptians to Cyprus as a gift to Demeter, son of Iascus, its valiant king, who happened to be with them. From Cyprus am I come to you so miserably. Antinos roared back, What murrian brought this killjoy here to curdle our feast? Leave my table. Stand away there, clear, or again you will find yourself in a bad Egypt and bitter Cyprus. The impudence of the beggar, to visit unabashed every man here and solicit alms, which they heap upon you so freely and carelessly, because it happens to be another man's property and plenty still remains. Odysseus drew off a little and said, It grieves me that your breeding should not compare with your looks. If you, thus sitting in another's house, refuse me 1 crumb from his plenty, it follows that at your own place, with you there, no suppliant would even give a grain of salt. At this saying, fury possessed the heart of Antinos. With sinister leer he ground out, For your saucy speaking I shall make sure you do not get away from the hall in good order. And upon the word he swung his footstool and hurled it to hit him on the right side, just where the arm roots into the back. Odysseus stood up against the blow like a rock, only he wagged his head in silence, while a black rage swelled within him. He reached his doorstep, laid the bursting wallet on the floor, and sat down to say, Listen, O suitors of the great queen, while I unburden my mind. There is no soreness or rancor, ever wounds received in battle, where a man defends his neat or his grey weathers. But here Antinos assaults me in an affair of the belly, that pestilent member which everlastingly afflicts us. If there are gods and avengers for the poor, may the crisis of death overtake Antinos before his wedding day. Antinos rejoined, Keep your place, stranger, and eat and hold your tongue, or else quit, lest the lads punish your words by dragging you hand and foot through the house till you are torn in ribbons. But actually he had greatly vexed the company, so that in succession these reckless young lords were protesting to him, saying, Your striking this unhappy waif was a sin, Antinos, which will seal your fate so surely as there is a God in heaven. Not to mention that these very gods are always distinguishing themselves as travelers from abroad and roaming our settlements to note human good or ill. However, he would not abide the other's remonstrances. As for Telemachus, though the anger grew within him, yet he too only shook his head dumbly at witnessing his father assaulted. When Penelope heard of a man's having been beaten in the guest hall, she cried before her maidens, "Oh, that great archer Apollo may smite you, Antinos, as you have smitten." And matronly Eurynome observed, "If our prayers were answered, never a one of these would see another dawn fairly enthroned." Penelope said to her, "O mother, every one of them is hateful, and all their desires are evil, but Antinos is black doom itself. A wretched stranger under spur of necessity wanders round the house to beg, and all give him something and fill his wallet until he comes to that one, who smites him with his stool behind the right shoulder." Hi. I'm good, thank you. How are you? So she held forth to her handmaidens from her chair in her room while Odysseus was eating. Then she summoned the swineherd and said, Good Eumaeus, bid the stranger come up to receive my hearty greeting, and be asked if he has heard anything of Odysseus, or seen him perchance, for he looks a much-travelled man. And you replied to that, O Eumaeus, swineherd? O queen, if only the Achaeans would grant you a moment's peace, how his tales would enchant your very wits. I had him for 3 nights and kept him 3 days in my homestead, for he came straight to me when he escaped his ship. Yet he could not exhaust this history of his mishaps. Spellbound, he held me at my own fireside while I yearned for him to go on forever, as the sight of a bard with the God-given art of entrancing song makes men yearn to hear him so long as he will sing. He claims a family acquaintance with the house of Odysseus, and to be a Cretan of Minos' race, made by misfortune to roll round the world till he reached here. He says he has heard of Odysseus nearby, in rich Thesprotian land, alive and bringing all kinds of treasure home with him. Nice to meet you too. Then Penelope cried, Bring him quickly to tell me this to my face, while those others sit in our gates or house, rejoicing to the top of their bent. Intact in their homes lies all their wealth, bread and sweet wine, with none but their house thralls to consume it, while they haunt us day by day, sacrificing our oxen and sheep and fat goats, and bidding our precious wine in their revels. Our entire wealth goes to rack for need of one like Odysseus to defend it from ruin. Oh, if only he might regain his country. How very soon he and his son would repay those men their outrages. While the words were yet on their lips, Telemachus sneezed so vehemently that the house resounded. Penelope laughed. Then she hastily repeated to Eumaeus, Now call the stranger instantly. Did not you hear how my son sealed all I said with that sneeze? It spells no half measures for the suitors, but utter death and doom for every individual man. Note this too, if I find that what he says is truth, I shall clothe him in tunic and cloak most handsomely. The Odyssey by Homer. That's what we're reading. Off went the swineherd on his urgent errand to say, Venerable stranger, Penelope the wise, the mother of Telemachus, calls you, having a mind to inquire about the Lord for whose sake she has suffered so much. And if she approves your good faith, she will give you the clothing you sorely need and let you go on begging in the town to profit your belly amongst all the well-disposed. Odysseus replied, I would readily tell Penelope what I know, and I have good information upon Odysseus, having endured ill luck in his company. But I fear this horde of irritable suitors, with their rude arrogance towering into the iron skies. Just now that man yonder struck me very sorely as I was inoffensively through the house, and neither Telemachus nor any other saved me. So let Penelope bridle her eagerness and wait upstairs till the sun goes down. Then let her find me a seat nearer the fire, my clothing, as you well know, for my first coming to you being threadbare, and question me upon her lord's returning home. Thank you. Back went the swineherd with this message, but hardly had he crossed her threshold than Penelope cried, Not bringing him, Eumaeus? What ails the tramp? Is he too afraid of someone, or does our palace scare him? A timid man makes a sorry beggar. Eumaeus answered, What he says is only what everyone feels about keeping clear of these bullies' violence. He wants you to delay till sunset, and that would benefit yourself, O queen, by letting you be alone when you question him and get his news. Wise Penelope said, Perhaps the stranger's caution is right. Surely of all living men, these suitors are the most outrageous and extravagant. So the queen, but the swineherd had said all he wished. Back he went to the suitors' gathering, to put his head close to Telemachus' ear and whisper so that none overheard. Beloved, I am going. I must see to the swine and all, my livelihood and yours. I leave you to manage here, but make it your first concern to guard yourself and ensure no harm befalls you. They wish you all the evil there is, this mob of Achaeans. Zeus, confound them before their mischief reaches us. Said Telemachus, Amen, father. Go after the time of supper, but return early tomorrow with sound beasts for sacrifice. The immortals and myself will regulate the business. The swineherd sat once more on his smooth trestle till contented with meat and drink. Then he forsook the courts and half full of banqueters. The day was ending, and their merriment broke out into dancing and singing, while he went back to the pigs. Okay. I actually think... What time are we at? 29 minutes. I don't know. think we're just gonna keep going. I think we're just gonna proceed. I do wish I had water though, but it is what it is. Okay, book 18. Then arrived on the scene a vulgar tout who used to cage his living everywhere round Ithaca, and had the champion gluttonous belly of the world, that put no bounds to his eating or drinking. Yet he got no muscle and no vigor by it, for all his bulky look. Arneus, his respectable mother, had called him at birth, but all the lads nicknamed him Iris, because there was never an errand he would not run. His coming now was to pick a quarrel with Odysseus, and expel him from his own house. So he floatingly began, "Outside the porch, old one, or you may be haled forth by the leg. Cannot you see how all these give me the wink to throw you out? But I should be sorry to do that. So off with you instantly, before our difference turns to blows." Deep, devious Odysseus eyed him hard and replied, "Sir, I am doing you no harm by saying nothing, nor do I resent the bounty these reserve for you, however liberal it may be. The door-sill is amply wide for both of us, and you have no call to be close with strangers' goods. You seem, like me, a wanderer, just as dependent on the gods for happiness. Wherefore do not rouse me with show of fists, lest I forget my years, lose temper, and sully your breast and mouth with blood. Yet thereby should I gain a calm tomorrow, for afterward, I think, you would never frequent the house of Odysseus again." This angered Iris the tramp. He cried, "Tut, tut, the pot-belly nags away like an old cinder quean. I shall play on him my wicked trick, that two-handed chop, to splatter the teeth of his jaw about the ground as a boar in the crop rattles down grains of corn. Gird yourself, then, to let all these see our fight, yet how dare you stand up to a much younger man?" Thus vigorously did each abuse the other on the polished threshold under the high entry, till the dignified Antinous became aware of them. He laughed outright, musically, and called to the rest, saying, "My dears, here is such luck as we have never had before. Real sport from God." Which lipstick did I use? It's just Burt's Bees. Strawberry. Just lip chap. Iris and our stranger are challenging each other to fisticuffs. Let us make a match of it instantly." Then they sprang up, laughing, and pressed round the two scarecrow tramps. But Antinous called, "Just a moment, sir suitors. Roasting there by the fire lie those goat paunches we stuffed with fat and blood and reserved for supper. Suppose we let the better man, after he has won this fight, go over to take his pick of them, and make him ever after free of our feasts, to be the only beggar allowed inside. Begging?" His proposal gained favor, till Odysseus, with crafty intent, said, "But friends, an old man worn with toil cannot fairly fight a young one. It is my mischief-making belly that eggs me on to earn this thrashing. So promise me on oath, everyone, not to foul me for Iris' sake with some heavy handstroke that will lay me at his mercy." All solemnly swore as he wished, and after the oath Telemachus said, "Stranger, if your pride and pluck move you to mate this man, have no concern for any Achaean. He who strikes you will have the crowd upon him. Witness myself your host, and thereto agree Prince Antinous and Prince Eurymachus, men of judgment." All approved. Where are you from? I won't be sharing that. All approved. Odysseus kilted up his rags like a loincloth, baring his massive, shapely thighs, his arching shoulders, chest, and brawny arms. Attendant Athene magnified the limbs of the shepherd of the people. The suitors were startled out of their wits and stared at each other, saying, "Such hams has the old fellow brought out from his rags, that soon our tout will be outed by an evil of his own procuring." Their boding shook Iris to the core. These workmen had to truss him forcibly. They brought him on with the flesh of his limbs quaking in panic. Antinous spoke to him sharply. "Now, bully, you were better dead or not born, maybe, if you will not start so in terror of an old man crippled with suffering. Let me tell you this for certain. Should he best you and win, I will thrust you into a black ship for export to the continent, to King Aegetus, bane of the earth, who will hack off your nose and ears with his cruel knives, and tear away your privy parts for throwing all raw to his dogs as food." These words gave the trembling a deeper hold upon his limbs. However, they haled him into the open, and there the two squared off. Royal Odysseus was puzzling himself if it were better to smite the other so starkly that life would leave him off where he fell, or to tap him gently and just stretch him out. On the whole, the gentle way seemed right, to save himself from too close notice by the Achaeans. So when they put up their hands and Iris hit at his right shoulder, Odysseus only hooked him to the neck under the ear and crushed the bones inward, so the blood gushed purple from his lips, and with a shriek he fell in the dust, biting the ground and drumming with his feet. The suitor lords flung up their hands and died of laughing, but Odysseus took him by the leg and dragged him through the entrance, across the yard, and to the outer gate, where he propped him up with his back against the precinct fence and his beggar's crutch between his hands, remarking bitterly, "Sit there and play bogey to the dogs and pigs, but unless you want a worse beating, never again set up your silly self as beggar king." And then he resumed his sorry wallet, the poor burst thing with mere string for strap, and walked back to the doorstep where he sat once more. The suitors, still laughing merrily as they trooped past into the hall, hailed him with, "Zeus and his immortals grant you your ambition, stranger, and fulfill your heart's wish for your having ended that insatiable tramp's begging up and down. Now we will trade him to the mainland, to King Echetus, mankind's worst enemy." Odysseus rejoiced at this fair omen, and Antinous set beside him the great tripe pudding, all bubbling with its blood and fat, while Amphinomus picked him 2 loaves from the basket, and pledged him thus in a golden loving cup. "Your health, venerable stranger. May there be happiness for you hereafter in place of the many woes you now endure." Odysseus replied, "Amphinomus, apparently you take after your enlightened father, for I have heard how Nisus of Dulichium was decent and rich. You, whom they call his son, seem approachable. So now attend closely and mark what I say. Of all that creep and breathe upon her, earth breeds no feebler thing than man. While the gods grant him vigor and limber joints, he says that evil can never overtake him. And when the blessed gods doom him to sorrow, he must harden his heart and bear that too. Man's free will on earth is no more his than the daylight Zeus ordains. Once I might have held a place in society, only that I, with infatuate reliance upon my father and kinsmen, let my pride and strength run wild. Might everyone take example thereby, to abjure lawlessness and accept God's providence evenly and without cavil. Yet here are the suitors just as lawlessly employed in spending the substance and pestering the wife of a man who, I tell you, will soon regain his friends and country. Indeed, he is near. May some power waft you away home, to miss meeting him when he stands at last beneath his roof tree, for I think he and the suitors will not be separated then till blood has flowed." He ended and spilled the ritual drop before setting his lips to the honeyed wine. Then he restored his cup to that marshal of the people who went back down the hall with bowed head and distress of mind. A foreboding of evil chilled his spirit, yet it did not save him from fate, for Athene had appointed him to meet death at the hands and spear of Telemachus. For the while he sank once more upon the throne from which he had risen. Goddess Athene now put it into the mind of Penelope, the royal daughter of Icarus, to appear before the suitors and inflame their hearts, while gaining distinction with her husband and son. So the queen laughed mirthlessly and said, "Eurynome, my heart urges me to visit these suitors in all their hatefulness, and I would also speak a timely word to my son, adjuring him, for his good, not to haunt the company of intolerant men whose kindly speaking is only a mask for infamy." The old dame replied, "Your proposal, my child, is fitting. Exhort your son and spare not. Only first wash yourself and make up your cheeks so as not to show him this tear-stained face. Unrelieved grief is not wholesome, and your son is now a man. Have you not much prayed the deathless ones to let you see him bearded?" Said Penelope, "Your partiality, Eurynome, must not flatter me to cleanse and anoint myself with unguent. The gods of high Olympus took away what appeal I had the day my man embarked. Summon Antenor and Hippodamia to support me in the hall. Unattended, I go not amongst the men. Modesty forbids." The old crone went off down the house to call these women and speed them. This room, thank you. Okay, we're getting there. Another notion came to Athene, who breathed down sweet sleep upon the daughter of Icarus, so that she leaned back in slumber on the long couch with all her joints relaxed. As she thus lay, the goddess was giving her immortal gifts to bewilder the Achaeans. First of all, she refined the beauty of her face with the imperishable salve used by well-crowned Cytherea whenever she goes featly dancing with the Graces. She made her taller and fuller to the eye, and whiter than ivory freshly sawn. So having worked her pleasure, the goddess departed as the white-armed maids chattered in from their room. Drowsiness left Penelope, who said, rubbing her cheeks, "That was a pretty trance which overlaid my sorrow. Would but chaste Artemis grant me, here and now, a death as calm, and save me an eternity of heart grief and sickness for my peerless lord, who surpassed the Achaeans in all nobility. You are so busy. I'm not telling you where I'm from. That's not something that I share. With this on her lips, the fairest of women went down from her shining upper room, not by herself, for the 2 maids attended her, till she reached the suitors. She took her stand by the great column which upheld the roof. She spread her bright head veil before her face. One to either side stood the trusted maids. The vision of such loveliness enfeebled her courtiers' knees and filched away their hearts with desire. Each man prayed that his might be the luck to lie abed with her. She addressed her dear son. My dear Telemachus, your feelings and your reason are not so stable as they were. Your childish nature was particularly knowing, but now that you are of grown age, your instincts and judgments fail. Yet any stranger setting his eyes on your tall beauty would know you for some great man's heir. Consider what has just now passed, and you are letting the stranger be mishandled. Leveling up my visuals? No. What would be the outcome of a guest suffering brutal injury in our halls? You would incur public obloquy and contempt for ever and ever. Telemachus answered reasonably, My mother, I do not resent your being vexed at this. Agreed that lately I was a child, but now I can distinguish good and evil and comprehend them. Yet I cannot order all things according to reason, for these men's wicked imaginings pull me hither and thither, and I get help from none. Still, this broil between Iris and our guest did not end in the least as the suitors wished, for the stranger proved the doughtier. By Zeus and Athene and Apollo, would that these suitors in our palace might every one lie vanquished in our house or court with hanging head asprawl, as Iris now squats by the precinct gates, lolling his drunk-like head, not able to stand upright or make off home, wherever home may be, because his limbs are all abroad. Greek god book? It's the Odyssey. Like to create something that matches your style. No, not really. I mean, I'm sure at one point I will, but right now, not really. So the one answered the other, but Eurymachus rose to compliment Penelope. O daughter of Icarus, if only the remaining Achaeans of Iasia and Argos might see you, this press of suitors feasting in your halls would be augmented by tomorrow's sunrise. You outshine your sex in features, stature, and intellect. But Penelope sadly rejoined, My charms of face and form, Eurymachus, the immortals reft from me, but time the Argives with Lord Odysseus sailed for Ilium. If he were back to shelter my existence, I should have a fairer and a wider fame, but now I am made sad by all these ill fortunes God has imposed. Listen, when he left his native strand, he took me by the wrist, by this right wrist, and said, Dear wife, I fear not quite all of us mail-clad Achaeans can live through this campaign, for the Trojans are described as fighters, good with javelin or bow, and expert managers of the swift-pacing horses that oftenest decide the issue of a well-matched fight. So I cannot tell if heaven will grant me a homecoming or retain me in the Troad. Hence, you must take charge here. Study my father and mother in the house as you do now, or even more, perhaps, to replace my absence. But when you see our son a bearded man, then feel free to marry again as you will and leave your home. Thus he enjoined, and his period is accomplished. The night comes which will see me a victim of the wedlock I loathe, one more misfortune for this ill-starred soul bereft of happiness by Zeus, and further harried by this new-fangled courtship. Such conciseless devouring of another's livelihood is clean contrary to rule. Properly, when rivals compete for the hand of a lady of family and fortune, they should bring their own fat flocks and beeves to feast her friends and give her costly gifts. Nice smile, and you are so pretty. Thank you. That's so nice. As he listened, Odysseus laughed to hear her cousining gifts from them and spaciously keeping her heart's lust in play, while preserving her very different purpose. For Antinous replied, O discreet Penelope, take what gifts the Achaeans will willingly bring in. No decent man shirks giving. Yet understand that we are not going to our own places or elsewhere till you have married the worthiest Achaean. All cried assent and charged their attendants to collect her gifts. The page of Antinous brought a lovely ample robe embroidered throughout. It was fitted with 12 toggles of pure gold, each pin complete with looped fasteners. From Eurymachus there arrived an elaborate chain, strung with beads of amber like golden sunshine. The attendants of Eurydamas fetched a pair of triple drop pendants, so clear that they sparkled brilliantly, while the squire of Pisander, King Polyctor's son, brought from his place a necklace that was a choice jewel. Every Achaean contributed something. Her maids took up the precious tribune, and away she went to her room upstairs. The company whiled away the evening hours with dancing and joyous singing, very well amused, and the darkness of night came down upon their gaiety. Then 3 fire stands were set out along the hall to light it, and about them piles of kindling wood, good dry stuff, long seasoned but freshly split. Into each heap were sorted firebrands, and the housemaidens took turns to feed their blaze until bold Odysseus said to them, "Maids of the long-absent king, away with you to your honored mistress's quarters. Sit there to divert her while you twirl yarn on the distaffs or comb wool for her with your fingers. I will maintain these men's light, nor yield weariness, though they should fancy to outwear the enthroned dawn. I have stout endurance." His words made them exchange glances and giggle. Only fresh-faced Melantho mocked him vilely. She was Dolius's child, reared and tended by Penelope like a daughter, and indulged with every bauble she set her heart on. Yet did she have no feeling for her lady's woes, but was Eurymachus' light of love. "O shabby guest," she now rudely cried, "are your wits unhinged, that instead of seeking fit lodging in some smith's booth or public house, you thrust in here and impudently enlarge your mouth amongst our lords? Or perhaps drink has gone to your head, or maybe you are a natural, and so talk gustily always. Or did your overcoming beggarman Iris unbalance you? If so, beware lest one stronger than Iris arise and hurl you forth all bloody from great buffets on your pate. Odysseus glared back and said, "Oh, bitch, I shall instantly find Telemachus to tell him your words, and he will hew you in pieces where you stand." His fierceness appalled the women, who believed what he said and scattered through the house with terror in every shivering limb, while he took his stand beside the flaring braziers, tending them and staring round, yet with his thoughts far away, fixed on what might be. Thank you. Athene was determined to provoke the suitor lords to sharper scorning, whose sting should pierce the heart of Laertes' son, so Eurymachus began to sneer at his expense in the others' hearing, to excite their ridicule. "Listen, O suitors of the famous queen, while I speak my mind. Surely this fellow's coming to the hall of Odysseus is a godsend. I fancy the main blaze of torchlight shines from him, from that polished head unruffled by the littlest hair." Then he turned to the stormer of cities and asked, "Stranger, would you enter my service if I hired you from my outlying farm to build dikes of dry stone or plant timber trees? You should be sufficiently paid and get rations all the time, good clothes and shoe leather. But alas, I fear you are a mere waster through and through, who will refuse employment while you can tout round the countryside and cage to gratify your bottomless appetite." You're from Oregon and you have a question. Okay. Go for it. Odysseus replied, "O Eurymachus, if only there might be a working match just between us two during the late springtide when the days are long. In a hay meadow, perhaps, me with a well-curved scythe and you with one like mine, our match to last all day, foodless, and go far into the loaming, with grass yet to spare. Or draught oxen of the finest, great flaming beasts lusty with feed, well matched in age and pulling power, and fresh, also a 14 field of loam that turns cleanly from the coulter. Then should you see what a long straight furrow I would drive." How to become so pretty and cute. Take your vitamins. Go for walks. Wash your face. And have good dental hygiene, I suppose. There's really, I don't know. Take your vitamins, I would probably say, is the biggest thing, and drink a lot of water. Then, should you see what a long straight furrow I would drive, or Zeus might, this very day, stir us up into one of his wars, and I get a target, 2 spears, and a skull cap of good bronze fitting tight to my temples. Then, when you saw me abreast to the forefront of the battle, you would rant no more nor ridicule my belly. Enough of this. You are an ill-natured cad, puffed up to think yourself someone by association with these few weaklings. Ah, if Odysseus came back to his land, how quickly would those wide doors become too narrow for your rush to safely through the porch. The retort swelled the anger of Eurymachus, who glared at Odysseus and cried sharply, "Wretch, I shall see that your big talk before this crowd gets you Wretch, I shall see that your big talk before this crowd gets you into instant trouble. Your impudence, has that wine touched your wits? Maybe you always play the public fool, or are you above yourself through beating poor scapegrace Icarus?" While shouting, he snatched up his footstool, but Odysseus, for fear of him, ducked downwards by the knees of Amphinomus of Dulichium. So the stool struck the cupbearer's right hand. He uttered a groan and measured his length in the dust, while his spouted flagon clanged loudly as it rolled. A gasp from the suitors ran the length and breadth of the hall. They exclaimed amongst themselves, "Oh, that our foreign visitor has died before he got here, and spared us this disorder and falling out over 2 beggars. Now the contagion of malice will spread, to spoil our delight in the luscious feast." Hey! Telemachus rose in reproof. "My lords, you are mad. Some god excites you, or do you fail to carry your food and liquor? You have feasted too well. Go home now and sleep just as soon as you like, though of course I force no man away." As they bit their lips in astonishment at such plain speaking, Amphinomus intervened. "Friends, that is proper comment, and we have no ground for offense or tart reply. Hands off the stranger and the servants of the house. Cupbearer, fill all round that we may offer libation before going away to sleep. We can leave the stranger to Telemachus, his host." All were pleased with this. Brave Mulius, the squire who attended Amphinomus from Dulichium, mixed them a bowl and served it. They poured to the blessed gods and themselves, drank of its sweetness. Then, heartful, they went to their rest. I know you. You are so best artist. You know Amelia. I know Amelia now. That is all for today. Thank you for reading with me. And I will upload this on YouTube. It's the same name as this channel, K.A. Reads Classics. It's all one word, no space. And I will be back tomorrow. So I hope everyone has a great day.